Welcome to my channel. I'm Jess. I knit and crochet and sew, and I like to share that on this channel. I share tutorials. I have a few crochet tutorials here, and I like to share these podcast type videos where I will show what I am currently working on, things that I've recently finished, and a few of the plans that I have for upcoming projects. I haven't filmed one of these in probably over a year, so I'm a little rusty. The reason that I am feeling so inspired to film today is because lately I've been obsessed with watching the everything I knit or everything I sewed in 2024 videos. Watching all those inspired me to film this today. I am not going to make one of those. I do hope that I can make one at the end of this year. I'm thinking that I actually want to start an organized journal, sort of. I'm planning to get a sketchbook and write down projects that I am making when I cast them on or start them, when I finish them, and notes about them. So that would help me in the future if I do plan to film one of those videos, and help me for a whole bunch of other reasons. But yeah, that's something that I'm planning to do this year. I think I'll start with my finished objects, and I've only got two. One is what I'm wearing, the other you can see behind me. So I'll start with what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Petrichor Pinafore by Sew Liberated. I finished this about a week ago, and this is the first time I'm wearing it. I'm glad that I made it. So I followed the pattern pretty much as it is written, except that I finished my seams differently. This pattern, which is kind of unusual for Sew Liberated patterns, they didn't use French seams in this pattern, but I decided to finish my seams with French seams pretty much throughout the garment. Well, not the yoke, it's done differently, but all of my side seams, even my pockets, which in this pattern they didn't share that. I learned how to French seam pockets in another Sew Liberated pattern. I think it's the Otis overalls, and I shortened the length a little bit because I wanted to wear it over jeans or in the summer as a mini dress. I use the shortest length in the pattern, but then once I finished it and right before I hemmed it, I just pinned it up to where I wanted it, and I took off maybe like 3 or 4 inches from the length so that I feel like it works better over jeans. The fabric that I used for this is a cotton, and I purchased it from a local fabric store. The name of the store is Stone Mountain and Daughter Fabrics in Berkeley, and I don't remember what the fabric is called or what the brand is. I just loved the texture and decided to get it. I tried to look it up online to figure out what this type of fabric is called. The closest I got was Shishito. Have this thread, and it was the same word. So Shishiko thread. So I'm not sure if that's what this is, but it has this threaded detail, like a little crisscross pattern. I have a feeling that that's what it is, but I don't know for sure. If I figure that out before I post this video, I will put it on the screen. But since I bought it locally, that happens sometimes. I just really like the fabric, got a few yards of it. I didn't know what I was going to make with it at the time, but this is perfect. I'm so glad that I made this garment with this fabric. I think it's the perfect weight, and I like how neutral the color is so that I can wear it with so many things. I really like it with this sort of dusty pink color. What else do I want to say about it? One thing I will say about Sew Liberated patterns is that I really appreciate the detail that they put into their instructions. So that was the same with this pattern. I did make a mistake in the back, but that was my mistake. It's written in the pattern correctly. I just started on the back, and so there's a little area where I can tell that I made the mistake. You might be able to see, so the yoke has sort of a little edge here. It's not supposed to. I started putting it together wrong. I was supposed to start in the front. I started in the back, so I had to unpick my stitches and sort of makeshift it back together. Overall, I would totally recommend this pattern. The instructions are done really well. It's a versatile garment, and is that it? And maybe that's all I have to say about it. And that brings me to this behind me. So this was my Halloween costume. So I finished this in late October of last year, The most recent video on this channel is the entire making of this garment. Filmed it from basically start to finish, so I won't share too much detail about it here. It is a sea siren costume that I made entirely myself. It has a chemise that's made out of a cotton voile that I dyed this sort of aqua blue color. The top is short stays, so Regency short stays that I modified from a couple patterns that I had because I've made short stays before. And then I embellished the stays with Swarovski crystals that I sort of purchased on a whim. I purchased all this fabric from a fabric store in San Francisco called Britex Fabrics. They had like a little counter section that had Swarovski crystals, and I wasn't planning to purchase those, but they were so pretty, and they were exactly like the inspiration for this costume that I found on Pinterest. It was a full corset that had crystals all over it. I love how it turned out though. It looks so pretty with those on it. I'm thinking that I could wear the same costume maybe next year if I dress up again, and perhaps turn it into some other fantasy costume with accessories, because it's not really looking like a sea siren. It's sort of a sea siren themed historical garment, fantasy, whatever. I just made what I wanted to wear. The only thing that kind of makes it look sea siren-y, or at least ocean themed, is the overskirt thing that I made. So I made an overskirt that has, let me grab it. So this is fabric that I dyed. It's a gauze fabric that I dyed to match the entire garment, and then I attached seashells to some netting and tucked this into the stays, and that kind of gave it a sea siren type of look. If you want to know more about that project, then I would recommend watching the video on how I made it. So I think now I'll share with you the projects that I'm currently working on. I've got 3 knitting projects and 1 sewing project. The first one, and one that's almost finished, is my Musselburgh hat. I am using Woolfolk Tynd in color number 14. This is a merino yarn, and I think it's a fingering weight. I chose this yarn because I used it in the past on a pattern that I released, I think it's been a year now, a pair of knitted underwear, and I used this yarn. So I already knew the gauge, and I knew that it was very soft, and I had some. So this is yarn that I already had in my stash, and it's so soft. I originally was going to make it in 2 different colors. I don't know if you can see a line. There's a line where I twisted the stitches by accident when I reattached one. What's the word I'm looking for? So I was knitting a different color from halfway down, and then I realized I just didn't like it. So I used a tapestry needle and a piece of twine and just picked up the stitches all around, and then unraveled the color that I didn't like, and then just reattached this same color. So that's why there's this twisted stitch line. But I'm not worried about it because it's going to be right where the hat is folded, and I don't even think it's going to be visible. I picked this pattern because I just really like the idea of having a squishy, thick hat that keeps my head warm and just kind of feels like a cozy blanket on my head. Yeah, I think it's going to be such a great hat to wear. This project has become my sort of on-the-go knitting project. I like to have a stockinette mindless knit going kind of at all times. I take it with me when I go places. It's kind of been a strategy of mine to have a stockinette project sitting on my passenger seat while I'm driving. It's sort of like a security to me. If I have that, I know that I won't get too stressed out in traffic. Like if I were to find myself in bumper to bumper traffic, I wouldn't have too much of a worry because I could do something while I'm there, or if I'm stuck in line somewhere, or if I have to wait for something. I've always got a project that I don't have to think too much about. I've been doing that for years. I'm sure lots of other knitters do the same thing, but that's my current mindless knit that I've been working on. It is almost finished. This is my halfway point. I've got quite a bit more to knit before I get to start decreasing for the crown, but I'm not in a hurry to finish this because it's just my project that I have on the go. The next project, and the one that I am most actively working on, is a vest. It's the first vest I've ever made, and I'm kind of excited to finish it. It's called Vintage Vibe vest, and I am using Nutiden yarn that I have had in my stash for over 2 years. And I tried making something with it right after I bought it, and I remember that I was holding together like a traditional yarn. I think it was like a 2-ply, whatever, some kind of yarn that was like traditionally wound, and then this unspun yarn together, and I was having a lot of trouble keeping it from breaking. The tension was an issue. I frogged that project and just had this yarn sitting on a shelf for a long time. So I've been looking for a project that I could use this yarn for. And I knew I needed it to be a garment that wasn't going to touch my skin because it's a little bit scratchy and I don't know that I can handle that. So a vest made the most sense. I'm pretty far along on it. I finished the right front and the back, and now I'm finishing the left front. I think I'll actually work on this after I'm done filming here and finish that today. And then after that I get to attach the underarm and then start working on the body. I'm planning to embroider over this. That's part of the reason that I chose such a simple design. I like that it's just plain stockinette, and so it's going to be perfect if I add any embellishments to it. And I'm thinking of embroidering over it. This is what I am currently spending my most time working on. And for some reason now, using this unspun yarn hasn't been too much of an issue to me. I am holding two together, and I think that that is key. I mean, the balls are separate. I don't have it wound together, and that's been okay. I have to be very mindful of it as I am knitting. I can't pull too hard because I'll just rip the yarn apart. I have accidentally ripped it a couple times, but I think that'll be okay. I'm looking forward to seeing it blocked because I think it's going to change the stitches so much. I don't know, is there anything else I want to say about it? The pattern so far has been easy to follow. I had to change needles from what's suggested in the pattern. I'm using, I think, 2 sizes larger than what's suggested to get close to the gauge. And then I had a moment where I almost scrapped the project because I realized that I wasn't measuring as I went, and I think that I made the front longer than it should be according to the pattern and the size that I'm making. But when I look at it here, it looks fine. It looks like it's going to fit my body fine. So it's not an issue at all. I'm glad that I didn't scrap it. I got a little frustrated for a moment and thought about ditching the project. Did I rip the yarn? I did. Yeah, I just ripped it. It's not a big deal. It's happened before, but while I've been moving it around and talking about it, I ripped one of the little guys. I know that there is like a proper way to reattach this yarn because it sticks to itself so easily. I think the last time this happened, I just sort of held the new piece with the old piece and kind of scrub them together so that they stick together, and then carefully knit those together. I don't know if that's the right way to do it or if there is a very right way to do it, but that's what I've been doing and it's been working okay. And I don't know how I'm gonna handle the weaving in of the ends. All the ones on the edges, I think, not a big deal. I'm probably just gonna hold them down as I knit the edging because this pattern has an edge that I'll be doing at the end. And I do have quite a bit of this yarn left over. I don't know if you've seen Nutiden yarn before, but this is how it arrives. When I purchased it, it came in these big cakes. I think they're called something different. But anyhow, when I first knitted with this, I was thinking that I could pull from the center like traditional yarn, but that does not work because you can't put that much tension on the unspun yarn. So I eventually just roll them into balls that I pull from the outside carefully. I've been thinking about what I should do with the rest of this yarn. I have quite a bit left over. I have a feeling that this yarn would make really good felted slippers. So I'm thinking of doing that with some of this yarn. It looks like it wants to grip to itself. And so I'm thinking that I will make a pair of felted slippers. I'm not sure what else I can make with it or what I want to make with it. Like I mentioned before, I don't want to make anything that's next to skin. So I'm thinking accessories, footwear, ooh, maybe like a belt. But if you know of any patterns or have any suggestions for what I should do with my leftover Nutiden yarn, please let me know in the comments below. I would love any suggestions. And then the last knitting project that I'm working on is actually a pattern that I am designing and will be releasing sometime soon. I think I started it last winter and set it aside over the summer because it is a winter accessory or a cold weather accessory, and I forgot about it. And then recently I was going through my craft supplies and I found this and picked it back up. So this is a cowl, and I'm calling it the Woven Cowl, and it is based on a pattern that I've already released, which is a bag called the Woven, I think I call it just the Woven bag, because I designed this basket weave stitch pattern for this bag. I can share a little bit about this bag, even though this isn't something that I was planning to talk about because I finished it quite a while ago. It has this folded over edge with a picot little edge and a drawstring. Of course you could knit a drawstring, but I like the stability, like this, it's not going to stretch. So I sewed a drawstring and have a sewn in lining, and there's instructions for that in the pattern as well, and pattern pieces for the lining to sew in. And the bottom is reinforced with a piece of felt. Oops, dropped a stitch marker. So anyway, this cowl is based on that basket weave pattern, and I made the little edge. Where are we at? There we are. The edge has that same picot detail. And I have a few other ideas for patterns that I want to make and kind of make a series of patterns using this specific basket weave stitch. But this is made using the same yarn as the bag, as you can tell, literally the same color, same yarn. It is Woolfolk Far in color number 17. And I think this is a worsted weight yarn, and it's a chainette style. So I can bring it closer so you can see. And it is merino wool. It's very soft, and it's perfect for something that's going to be worn on the neck. So I'm almost done with the outer part. I'm going to do a little bit more, finish this side with the same folded over edge, and then it's going to have lining. So it will have a contrasting color. I'm going to use this color, the same as my Musselburgh hat, but in this yarn, because they're both Woolfolk. That yarn company makes a lot of the same colors, and they're different types of yarn. So anyway, this is going to be the lining inside of this because I want it to be double and very warm. And I feel like this is a little too floppy, and I don't want to feel this against my neck. I want it to be nice and soft, like the front side of stitches, not the back with these little lumps. I don't know when I'll finish it. The weather's warming up, so I'm not super motivated to get it done. I know that I'm not going to get it released in this cold weather season, but I'm thinking that I will get it done in the spring and then maybe have a call for testers this summer and then get it released late summer, early fall this year. That feels like it would be perfect timing. And I will have links to the patterns that I mentioned for all of these projects in my show notes. Last work in progress is a sewing project, and that one is also almost done. It is an Alabama Chanin top. It's from her sewing patterns book. I say her as in Natalie Chanin. I think I got that book like over 10 years ago. It's a tunic length top, and the pattern that I used is the camisole tank top, and I used the tunic length. It's a base pattern that's a camisole, a tank top, or a dress at different lengths. So I sort of mixed the camisole and tank top part, which just means that I made the neckline lower but the back kind of higher. I did some stenciling. Reverse applique is what I did. So I used a stencil from the School of Making. I forgot what it is. It's one of the floral patterns, obviously. So I made the stencil, and then I transferred it on with some fabric paint and then stitched around it and cut out the inside. So I did reverse applique. I don't sew these all by hand. I just decided years ago when I started making Alabama Chanin garments that I wasn't going to do the inside seams that you're not going to see. I do it with my sewing machine because I want those to be really uniformed and I want the garment to be really sturdy. I have sewn a couple Alabama Chanin patterns fully by hand, and I like how they turn out. It's fine, but the stitches are just not exactly uniform, and of course it takes a lot more time for me to stitch it entirely by hand, especially if I'm doing things like applique details. That takes long enough. So this is almost done. I am just on the part where I'm finishing up the seams. I flat filled the seams and I'm just on the last part, the sides. I will say too, I purchased her, I think it's her most recent book. It's The Geometry of Hand Sewing. And the main reason that I got the book is because it has these templates for stitches in it. And so I used that, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I used that with my invisible pen. So I don't know if you could see. I've got dots where I'm going to put my stitches. And that's because I used the stencil. And then when I iron it, those will go away. The dots erase with heat. So once I am done with finishing off the flat felled side seams, I will do the binding of the neckline and the arms, and then it will be done. Oh, I think I did make enough binding to bind the entire bottom, so I think I'm going to do that. Most of these patterns don't have, I don't think any of them. Yeah, none of them. I'm looking at the book, it's on my floor. The original patterns in the book, they don't bind the bottom of any garments, but I think I'm going to, just to give it a more finished look. The fabric that I used for this is from Organic Cotton Plus, and I think one of them is from Organic Cotton Plus, and I think the other is from an Etsy shop. I can put links to both in my show notes. One is a dusty pink, and then this one's more of a dusty purple. Okay, so my battery died, and I have to try to figure out what I was saying last. I think I said everything I wanted to say about this top. It's almost done, and the last thing I'm going to do once I finish the stitches is do the binding, and I think I already talked about that. It's not my biggest priority. I really, for some reason, want to finish the vest first, and then next I'll finish this, definitely. I like having hand stitching things to do as well as sewing on my machine. I always like to have an Alabama Chanin pattern. One of my goals, actually, no, maybe I should share this at the end. I should share that at the end. Am I at the end? I am. I can share it now. So those are all of the projects that I'm working on currently. And now I want to go into what my plans are creatively for the near future. I'm not going to get too in-depth about specifics. I might share videos about bigger picture stuff in the future. Like, for one thing, one of my goals for myself is to build out my wardrobe more. Create more handmade pieces for myself that are really practical and feel like me, and things that I want to wear, fabrics that I like to wear, styles that I feel comfortable in, all that stuff. So I'm kind of figuring out everything that I want to make. I think it's going to turn into sort of a capsule wardrobe with pieces that are interchangeable, layerable. Yeah, I think I'm going to make a dedicated video just about that when I get that all figured out. But I will mention one thing. I want to knit myself a sweater. That's a goal for this year. I have never knit myself a sweater. I've started knitting sweaters for myself at least twice, but yeah, before I finish, something goes wrong or I changed my mind. I want it to be something that is very practical and that is kind of a simple design, because I want it to be something that I can wear all the time and feel comfortable in. When I think I was like in my early 20s, whatever, quite a while ago, I had a sweater that I purchased from Express, and it was my favorite top to wear. And so I think about that as an example of something that I'd like to recreate. And it wasn't anything very special. It was a V-neck, sort of plum purple colored sweater. The gauge, I mean, this was a machine knit top, obviously, so the gauge was really tiny. I'm not gonna match it exactly, but I'm just sort of using that as an example of something that I'd like to knit for myself. It had really long sleeves, kind of like this top, how the sleeves are a little extra long. And I will say it had negative ease, so it was form-fitting. I don't know if that is a necessity for me with this top, or like when I make a sweater now for myself, but I'm using that sort of as a gauge because it was something that I wore all the time. I felt really comfortable in it. Also the color I think that's part of it. That kind of plum color. I think a darkish color. I need to make sure that I choose a yarn that is the right color and the right feel. So I haven't decided on pattern specifically. I don't think I'll draft it myself. I will try to find a pattern that works for me. Every Cumulus blouse I've seen, I love. I'm thinking that I might do the Cumulus blouse. And I might even do it in the yarn type. I think it is made with a mohair. I haven't knit with mohair before. So I want to do my research quite a bit before I make a decision on the yarn that I choose. Also, the other alternative to that is a very oversized kind of boxy sweater with a huge cowl neck. I would love one of those. And they're kind of for two different things. One is for everyday wear, and the other is more like a huge cowl neck boxy sweater feels like something that I would wear around the house constantly. And then the V-neck top feels like something that I would wear out in the world. I mean, I would like to make both of those types of sweaters for myself. So maybe just this year in general, I can make myself both of those. But being that I have never finished a sweater at all for myself, I don't want to have the goal of making two. Anyway, I'm still on the fence about it, but knitting myself a sweater, that's definitely a goal for me in the near future. Another specific goal, this goes with building up my wardrobe, but it's kind of specific in that I really like giving myself challenging projects that feel like it'd be awesome if I could actually make that myself. So, shoes. I want to sew myself a pair of shoes, and maybe more than just a pair, maybe several pairs. I found a pattern just random. I think I was browsing Pinterest and I saw a sewing pattern for barefoot style shoes. And I have some of those myself. I'll grab the ones that I have. I have a couple pairs of wildling shoes. So I found a sewing pattern that makes a shoe that looks very similar in style to these shoes. And yeah, I just think it would be so cool to make myself a pair of shoes. I finally figured out how to actually purchase the pattern. And I did. And the instructions are so thorough that I really feel like I can do it. The main shoe pattern is just a regular height, but then it gives instructions for how to add this if I wanted to. But I'm really thinking that it would be so fun to have shoes that match my garments really well and fit me perfectly. Like, I love these shoes. I wear them all the time. I will say though that I wish they were more insulated. I know they're barefoot shoes, so that goes with the type of shoe they are. When I make them myself, I want them to have a little more cushion and like thickness around all of it. But I am thinking that I'm going to make it with a similar type of fabric. This is herringbone wool, and I have some of that. I don't know why I didn't think to grab it to share in this video. I'll just show it here, the fabric that I have that's very similar to this. In that same sort of vein, at least to me, it feels very similar. So I also think I want to make undergarments. I found months ago a YouTube channel. The woman shared instructions for how to make custom sized underwear and a soft bra. And so I have the instructions for doing that. I haven't tackled that yet or started it, but the video was so thorough that it made me excited to make my own underwear. So I haven't done it yet, so I want to make underwear and shoes and knit myself a sweater so far. That's what we've got. So all that goes with a wardrobe, but those are just some specific things that I know that I want to make. Bigger picture creative plans that I have going forward. I want to release more patterns. I showed you one that I'm working on now, but I have several sewing and knitting and crochet patterns that are either almost done or ideas or partially done. Anyway, I have quite a few that I really just want to like see to fruition and put out into the world. And then I'll share those here as I make them, of course. And then sort of in that same line, I want to make more YouTube videos like I'm doing now. Specifically, I want to make a follow-up video to my how to crochet mushrooms tutorial. If you're watching this now, you most likely found my channel because of that video. Most of my followers to this channel found me because of that video. I think it's been 2 years since I released that tutorial, and it has over 100,000 views. Relative to the rest of the views on my channel, that is much higher than any other video that I've shared. It's gotten a lot of questions and comments, and I've been meaning to, for over a year, make a follow-up video to explain better how to do some techniques and add more information. I know from personal experience that if I didn't know how to crochet and I saw a video on how to crochet mushrooms, I would want to make that right then, not start anywhere else. I would want to make the mushrooms. And so I want to make the video kind of for that audience. And for all the people who asked questions specifically that were a little bit too challenging for me to just write a quick response to, I think I need the visual to go with it and to talk it out in a video form. So I'm planning to do that very soon. I have a feeling that my next video is going to be like a plan for making my handmade capsule wardrobe. After that, or before that, I'm not sure, it's the mushroom video. I just feel like I need to do a service to that one that I shared years ago, to all the people who were confused and have questions, and then I can point them in the direction of this new video that has more information. Also, if you don't know about that mushroom video and you crochet, then I recommend to watch it. Going with that is a crochet pattern that I worked really hard on. It's just called Mushrooms because I designed it so that you could make different caps and stems and the frill and the I forgot the terminology of mushrooms. Anyway, I made it so that all the pieces could be interchangeable so that you can basically make any style of mushroom. And I was so excited about that when I designed the pattern. And it's quite a few pages, and all of the different styles of caps and stems or stipes are in there, and even how to add spots and then shaping. I have a technique for shaping the mushrooms to make them a better shape. Now I'm going to get back to knitting my vest and fixing the piece that I broke off. And then in my next craft podcast, I will probably have this finished and maybe I'll be wearing it in that episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you found this entertaining or helpful, and I will see you again soon.